I think we are live. Matt, I got to tell you, man, white people suck. They're just the worst, man.
Yeah,
Oh,
not this white guy. I think I'm all right.
hopefully not these two fine gentlemen. But hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to Fatherly Phantom. I'm Chris. My co-host over here, Mr. Matty, Man. Call him what you will. But what we're doing something new here, aren't we, Matt? What are we doing?
Yeah, we're doing it. We're calling it like a film flight, where we're giving you a whole bunch of like a movie marathon. We watch a bunch of movies along a central theme,
Yeah.
and then we review them all individually. So hopefully allow you guys out there who watch and tune in a chance to, maybe make an informed decision whether or not you want to check out these movies.
Right? And so the theme of this one, obviously the Oscars. So there's 10 Best Picture nominations, right? And
Yeah, I can't believe it. A whole boatload of films this time.
Oh my gosh, a ton of them. So we're gonna try to blast through all of these by March and get these all watched and review these live. So we're gonna be taking this. What today we're gonna be talking about Killers of the Flower Moon. So you know what time it is?
Hit that intro.
Yeah.
This is the way. This is the way.
Woo! All right, guys. Welcome. Oh man, we got our first comment here from this is from Not Your Status Quo. He says, I hate informed decisions. So do you and a lot of other voters. So
yeah. This guy likes a little knowledge going in. But I gotta say, I didn't research out anything before watching this movie. I don't know about you, Chris, but I had no idea the circumstances of the story. I hadn't even seen a full-length trailer for this movie yet.
Nothing. I went completely fresh this thing. As soon as you suggested it, I was like, okay, let's just go ahead and watch whatever this movie is about.
And that's what we're doing with a lot of the Oscar movies this time is going in and making as uninformed decisions to watch the movies as possible, I guess.
As humanly possible, guys. Yeah. So right now what we're going to do for you guys is we're going to do a spoiler-free segment here where none of us are going to talk about any details from the movie or anything.
Fingers crossed.
Hopefully. Yeah, we'll try our
anything
best,
slip.
Yeah. And then we'll have a full-on spoiler section right after this. So Matt, overall, what'd you think? What'd you think of this film, Killers of the Flower Moon?
Yeah, it was a great movie. You start watching these. I mean, with this one, I guess kicking us off the Oscar run. Like, well, I know why it was nominated. Because it's hitting the high note on like every aspect, right? So Martin Scorsese movies, they usually have great cinematography. They usually have great editing, directing, and they usually have great actors. And of course, this has all of that as well.
In spades, the visuals alone. I love the fact that they actually filmed in Oklahoma. So instead of filming in California or Georgia, which seem to be the primary places that you go, or Canada,
or Vancouver.
Yeah, exactly, Vancouver. Yeah. They finally went to Oklahoma and they actually passed some legislation in Oklahoma because of this movie so that they can get more subsidies and things for people to come out and film on location in the state. I'm like, dang,
wow, that's pretty awesome.
Cool. Yeah, so I very much enjoyed all of that too. Martin Scorsese, you can't really go wrong with him. Now, I think, do you think anybody's going to have a problem with the length of the movie? It's 3.5 hours.
Oh, long. Yeah, I think that's going to be a turnoff for some people. I know that. So whenever I went to initially watch the movie, I invited my wife, and she was like, I don't know, 3.5 hours. You tell me how it is. And so,
yeah, right. That's a kicker.
I watched the movie. My initial gut reaction was like, I'm never going to watch that movie again. It was hard hitting and depressing, and I liked it, but it was a tough watch. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But then I immediately got home and watched it again with my wife. So, and she was up for it. So the thing that sold her was we both like true.
Yeah, me too. Oh,
Can you still
there he
hear
is.
me?
Yep. He almost
One of
got
my
true
alarms
crime
went
right
off.
there. Oh, okay.
But one of our common interests is true crime, and so I
Same.
said, this is really centered around a central story concerning, a murder mystery, to some degree. It's not the film doesn't really present it as a mystery,
Right.
but it's true crime story, and she likes that, and so we watched it, and she felt the same way. It was deserving of the length. It's a long movie. It's a
Yeah.
commitment for sure, but the
Yeah.
story deserves a longer time span to watch it.
I absolutely agree because I felt when I was going into this, I looked at the runtime. I'm like, three,
Oh,
3.5 hours. Oh my gosh, how am I going to get this all in before we have to record? And then by the end of it, I'm like, I tried to think, I'm like, was there anything that they could have taken out of this movie or truncated down in any way and still give it the same impact that the film did? And for all accounts, no. Oh, another alarm went off. But for all accounts, no. I don't think there's anything that they could have taken out of this movie. So I feel
yeah.
like the 3.5 hours was definitely justified in this movie. You still there, Matt?
Oh, there I can hear. No, I couldn't there for a while, but I can now.
All right, good. Sorry, guys, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. We have phone issues. It wouldn't be Fatherly Phantom without a couple.
Right. Pretty sure there's going to be a kid or a dog that whizzes by the screen at one point.
The kids are not here right now, so I won't get a lightsaber to the face.
Yeah.
Right,
I might get a tarantula to the face here in a second, but we'll see if that guy gets out again.
That'll bump up the viewers.
Yeah.
Looks like Keith in our comment section says he needs to see the movie. Keith, I agree. I think that is well worth your time. Definitely, there's good reason for its nomination for the Academy Award for Best Picture. I did very much like it. Like you said, Matt, it was very somber. It's not a movie that's gonna make you feel good by the end of it.
No, parts of it reminded me like the feeling, I guess, that you get after the movie was like, wow, it was kind of like watching Schindler's List. Like it's really hard
Agreed.
story
Yeah.
to soak in.
Yeah.
The violence is different, and it's a totally different circumstance with both of those stories. But you kind of feel like that's why I thought, I love Schindler's List, but I think I've seen that movie maybe twice, because it's so hard to watch it knowing stuff like that actually happened to real people. And I thought the same with this, but the story was so captivating that seeing it again as quickly as I did, it actually wasn't that difficult. It was, I picked out more to the film on a second viewing. So I actually do recommend that. If you're interested in the story the first time, you thought, I don't know, this is just too much, try it again, and I think you'd be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think it's also very important to watch just for a historical reference about this time period in the 1920s and these things that happened. Not only with this, with like the Tulsa massacre too, which they bring up in the film as well, the Ku Klux Klan, just the overall American society at that time. It's a very blunt and brutal look, I guess, at how things were back then. And yeah, while it's not great, it's still worth shining a light on.
Well, it was really weird because Schindler's List, I feel like, tells sort of this. It gives sort of a broad perspective on the Holocaust, while also zeroing in on Schindler's story specifically. And I thought this movie did the same. It kind of gave us this broad, like you said, look at what was going on in America at that time, but also zeroes in on Molly and her family's story, which I really
very personal
found,
story.
Yeah, to be the most captivating is that this poor family had to endure all of this stuff.
Yeah, Molly played by Lily Gladstone, and Ernest played by our guy Leonardo DiCaprio as well. So Yeah,
Yeah.
they really centered the movie around that, which they don't do in the book. So it's an interesting contrast that they have there. So
Mhm.
yeah, who do you think? Like for me, I was trying to think of like who would I not suggest this movie to, and I feel like anybody like you have to be ready for this movie. If you're not ready for
Yeah.
this movie, or if you um are sensitive to violence or anything like that, or
A lot
domestic
of violent
violence,
images in here.
yeah. And if you've
Martin
gone through,
Scorsese,
yeah,
I I think the violence that he does is very blunt. So you just
yeah,
be
he does.
watching a scene, and all of a sudden there'll be a quick cut to somebody getting shot in the face.
Yeah,
And
very, very striking.
yeah, it can be disturbing at times. So if you haven't liked any of Martin Scorsese's other movies, I think this one's going to be difficult for you to watch
Yeah,
as well.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah.
All
So
right, got another comment here. Hey, Doug, he's on YouTube right now. He says, "I can't wait to check this movie out. I haven't had a chance yet, but the trailers look fantastic." Agreed. So yeah, you should definitely check it out. He
yeah.
says history is unfortunately full of violent moments. It is, and it's important for us not to whitewash our history, right?
Well, and I think even beyond the, you know, the story of what's going on between two different races here, I think it tells a story of opportunism. And I
Mm,
really think that
yeah,
that can happen to anybody anywhere,
true.
given the correct circumstances. And so for me, it speaks to what what could we have done better in this environment that presented an opportunity for people to come in. I don't want to get in, it's hard to say without spoiling anything,
Right.
but it presented a pretty glaring opportunity for criminal activity. And so it's
Yeah.
like we
Oh,
could have been probably a little bit
reckless
more
abandonment.
proactive
Yeah.
in putting
Yeah.
some things into place that would not have allowed this to happen. So
Ooh, boy. Yeah. Yeah, it did. And so this is basically a Western crime drama. And so this presents another aspect of the West, the Wild West, that we really
yeah,
haven't seen in a whole lot of movies in that type of genre. So that's what I've really appreciated about that. And so you nailed it on the head, buddy. It really does. It's like, wow, what could we have done differently about this, And
yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. Overall, let's give it a thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs middle, I guess, for our non-spoiler review here. So what would you give it?
Yeah, gonna give the old Joaquin Phoenix thumbs up, and
Hey, there we go. Hey,
yeah.
do the double thumbs. Do the double thumbs real quick.
Does he do double
There it
thumbs in
is. No,
Gladiator?
you see that?
Oh yeah,
Do you see the
perfect.
fireworks?
Yeah,
Yes.
but
It just doesn't.
no, I'm gonna definitely give it a thumbs up. So,
Definitely. I have to agree. So I
what
will
about you
also
there?
give
Yeah.
it a thumbs up.
Okay.
Absolutely. So yeah, I would say that this is definitely worth your time to go watch and enjoy before the Academy Awards. See how it stacks up with the rest of these movies. So if you
Yeah.
haven't seen it, is there anything else we want to discuss before we go into the full-on spoiler section?
No, I think that who I'd recommend it for is people that are into true crime cinema.
Yeah,
Um,
agreed.
if you liked Goodfellas, you're gonna like this too, I think.
Mhm.
Um, but it'll be like Goodfellas, except for it'll probably make you mad for the family and the people that were in that circumstance,
Yeah,
which I think
definitely.
is part of the point. So
Yeah,
it's a true crime story with a larger point to make, and so if you're looking for something like that, I think I'd recommend it to you.
agreed. Agreed. All right. So with that said, let's roll on in to our spoiler-filled section here. So we're gonna count us down here. So are we ready to go? Are you ready,
We're
Matt?
ready to go.
We're ready to get
I'm
out of here.
ready to spill the beans.
So all over the beans will be spilled everywhere. We'll
Yeah,
be covered in beans. Let's rock and
lots of beans
roll.
coming.
All right.
3,
5, 4,
2,
3,
and then 1, of
1.
course, followed by 0.
Spoiler-filled review. So
Yeah.
guys, warning. Warning, if you see the little warning
Bah,
right there.
bah. We
Spoiler
need a
alert.
noise.
So if you have not seen it, if you don't want to get spoiled with this, I would suggest you to pause this for now. Go watch the film. Take 3.5 hours. Come back.
Due to the premise of the film, I think you need to not have spoiled for you because it's part of the shock. Is right off the bat, they tell you a story that you've never heard. So if you don't want that spoiled, quit listening to us.
I like that a lot. I love the fact of just going in fresh to this because it was the best experience, I think. For watching this film. Definitely. Doug's got a question. He says, "Is it better than Snyder's masterpiece Rebel Moon?" Well, I watched about half of Rebel Moon, and I would say yes. What would you say, Matt?
Well, having not seen it yet at all, I intend to see Rebel Moon and give Snyder another try as always. Yeah. But, I'm not a Legends of Ga'Hoole. Is that the owl one?
The owl one, yes.
His
best work, masterpiece.
So if you were a fan of Legends and you found Rebel Moon disturbing or subpar, then I think, Killers of the Flower Moon is going to be right up your alley.
All right. So let's get in to our spoiler-filled review. And now if you notice, our little logo has changed to our lovely little Oscar symbol because this is an Oscar contender. The first one that we're doing on here. Hi, Oscar. How's it going?
After we get through all of them, we're going to have to make predictions. And for those of you that don't know or just simply haven't Googled it yet, March 10th is when the Oscars are this year. So if you want to watch along with us, just make sure you get the films done before then. And
I might just I might take that day off too. I might put some PTO in for that Sunday night. And so that we can do like a live stream or something for the
little vacay time. About that. Tell them you got a dentist appointment Sunday night.
That's right. So. My tooth. Yeah. So I love like how this movie opens up. Killers of the Flower Moon. You have the Osage Nation. They're coming together and they have that pipe. And then they're putting away their old traditions and going towards the white culture and whatnot. And then the way that they find the oil is by burying the pipe, and then that's how the oil came out. Was that?
Well, so when I watched it a second time, because I thought I remember it like that. And it shows them dig the pit for the pipe, but then it shows a completely separate spot of like dry, cracky land that starts to.
I know. I was like, is this implying that it's like that because they buried the pipe, their traditions that the oil came? And I was like. A cursing and a blessing, like at the same time. This imagery is supposed to bring up a lot of questions, and that's what Martin Scorsese does very well with this movie. Is the imagery.
Well, and you look at what they did. So oil comes out of the ground, and everybody in the reservation gets extremely wealthy, and when
the wealthiest Americans per capita in Oklahoma at the time
I thought they were the wealthy. I think the movie says like wealthiest people in the world per capita, right?
Well, probably because America was probably the wealthiest country back then too. So that's true. But from the research I did, it said the wealthiest Americans per capita. So, but that's probably the world too.
Then the film proceeds to give a series of images where there's very little of Indian tradition in any of it. You see these Native Americans playing golf, flying airplanes, riding around in very expensive cars, having like a very assimilated look to their culture after the discovery of that oil.
Right. Yeah. And they definitely did get assimilated in there. And I didn't get this. It wasn't very clear when I was watching the movie, but after I read up on it, it made a little bit more clear about what was going on. Where the Native Americans, they actually passed legislation in Congress for the U.S. that they couldn't just own their money right out. They had to have a white guardianship over them to tell them how they can spend their money, and they had to go to that person to get their money. And I was like,
everybody that you're seeing in that picture there has a white person that's in charge of the money that they're supposed to get from the oil rights.
Yeah.
And that person, like you were saying, talks to them about what they're spending their money on.
Yep.
So,
And that brings into play Robert De Niro, the great, the king, William King Hale,
King
which is
Hale.
our main antagonist. And my God, does he bring it in this film? What did you think of him?
He is such a good actor, even when he's acting like a total snake. And reading more
Yeah.
about the real story and what happens to William Hale and how Robert De Niro played him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I got to ask you, like, it's really hard to understand. Is he actually appreciative of, I mean, obviously he killed a bunch of people.
Yeah.
But is he a lover of the Osage people? Does he just tell himself that? Was he trying to put on airs and look like this big philanthropist in order to weasel his way into their society? It's so hard to tell what his core motivation is, because he just sticks to his story, even when he's telling people to go murder some of the Osage Native Americans.
And even when he was locked up at the end and he was all concerned for the daughter passing away, I'm just like, man, like he's got these, it's crazy. He's got these like two sides of him, like the side that seems like he cares a lot, but at the same time doing these despicable things.
Right. And when him and, Ernest are talking at the end, and he's telling Ernest, people will forget, they'll still love me, all this stuff. It's almost like he has been so into this persona that he's built as, this lover of the people, that he's too far in the delusion to even recognize how much harm and pain and suffering that he's caused. He's and that they don't love him, that they want to kill. Everybody hates him, and he's just not accepting of it.
No, even when they were reading the letters at the teleplay at the end, like his letters back to the Osage Nation, like, I love you guys and I can't wait to come back, which he was banned from Oklahoma too. So he never got to go back. He lived the rest of his life up in Montana as a dishwasher and a cowboy. And,
but it's almost like he still had it in his mind that none of that matters, that the people there still love him. Even whenever the oil rights and everything was taken off the table, the money's gone. He's still insistent upon it. So it's like, why is he still driven to have that acceptance?
I know some people. That are like that, man. They exist. And so Robert De Niro, hats off. I mean, I'm not wearing a hat, Matt. Hats off.
You're going to say it too. At one point, you're going to call him Robert Downey Jr.
I am not. I'm not going to call Robert De Niro the great, the man. RDJ. But man, he did it. He did such a fantastic job. And so we got to talk about Ernest and Leonardo DiCaprio's role. I'm going to mess up his name all day long. DiCaprio's role in this and how that changed over the course of them making it as well. Because I think that's an interesting story, something to explore. So why don't you take us into that?
Well, right. So like Chris already told you guys, this movie is based on a true story, which is painstakingly documented in a book, Killers of the Flower Moon. And the book goes into a lot about the formation of the FBI, what this case meant to J. Edgar Hoover and the Bureau of Investigation at the time. And so there's much, much more detail there, right? Overall, the story of the book is about this investigation and what it meant.
Right. It centers around him, right?
Right, exactly. The character that is the lead investigator for the Bureau, instead of Ernest and King Hale and all of them, and even Molly. So when Leonardo DiCaprio was brought in to consider roles, who he would play and that sort of thing, after reading the book, he said he wanted to play Ernest. He found the character more challenging, more interesting to play. and it was against type. The studio
Yeah.
didn't like that very much and said, no, we need you to play the hero lawman that breaks the case open and eventually brings the criminals to justice. But Robert De Niro, no, I'm going to do it. Martin
You said it right.
Scorsese,
Oh,
I know, but it wasn't even who I was talking about. Martin Scorsese wanted to give Leonardo DiCaprio the chance to do what he wanted. He's a great actor, and
He
really
is.
he should be able to pick whatever. They were looking at adjusting the screenplay to be driven by Molly and her family more anyway, and so it lined up that having Ernest as the forefront character played by their lead Leonardo DiCaprio would fit right in there with how they were making adjustments to the screenplay. But again, the studio continued not to like that very much. So you want to go over the outcome, Chris?
Oh, that they pulled their funding, and it was during COVID too. So I read up some more stuff about that, and because
Yeah.
of the pandemic, it got pulled back too. So Apple TV went ahead and purchased some of the funding, like I think how much was it? 200 million of the
Yeah, I
budget
think it was
picked up.
thereabouts, and they got streaming rights
Mhm.
to put the movie out as it was in theaters at 45 days. I believe is what it was, but
Yeah, back in October.
yeah,
I also found a piece I thought was pretty interesting because one of the descendants of Ernest and Molly, Margie Burkhart, was actually talking to Martin Scorsese and everything, and he told her that, and she's the granddaughter of Ernest, and she said that Leonardo's character, who he plays in the film, should be Ernest because she was talking about her grandfather in kind of like a positive way. She said, "You have to understand this. Yes, there was murder, etc., etc., but Molly and Ernest were in love. They were in love." And after he talked to the granddaughter there, they both realized, like Leonardo DiCaprio and Martin Scorsese realized, like, you know what? The heart of this movie is going to be with Molly and Ernest. We've got to center it around them. And so it's
yeah,
really like this is Lily's movie, Lily Gladstone's movie. And so Leonardo DiCaprio was like, so I've got to play Ernest, right? And so Martin Scorsese was like, yeah, you do. Because there was so
yeah,
much there. There's so much story there. And his performance throughout there shows that, like this wandering, wayward fella that you believe loves Molly so much, but at the same time, like, is poisoning her, is killing people, and following
yeah.
the orders of Hale, and they're in just being manipulated
Well,
left and right.
right, and Ernest is the cautionary tale because
Yeah, absolutely.
Ernest he's not the everyman.
Hmm.
People aren't going to watch Leonardo DiCaprio and think, I could be that guy.
Yeah,
But how many among us would be drawn into the same terrible logic that he
yeah,
has throughout the film by the manipulation of Robert De Niro's character, William Hale? And I think the movie's making that point. I also think the
yeah.
movie makes a point that, you know, Ernest comes to town with some
Makes
inherent
me think of the other
bias and
Ernest.
racism built in, right? We
Yeah,
see early on he uh, is conscripted to commit a crime, basically to do a robbery
yeah.
of
Right off the
one of the
bat,
Indian families, right? And steal
hmm
their jewelry.
steal the jewelry.
And during
Goes out
that
and gambles
robbery,
it all.
yeah, he's not a wise man at all. But during that robbery, I couldn't tell if it's him or one of the other robbers, makes the comments, "You guys didn't earn this anyway." So they're already um, bias against Native Americans in that reservation, their specific situation, having the money and all that,
Yeah,
and so he
they're
goes.
justifying their opportunistic
Yeah, they're
behavior. Yes.
just he's already doing that without really a whole lot of attempt to manipulate him
Yeah,
by William Hale. But so with that in his mindset, it doesn't take much to continue to push him to go to further and further lengths. And as
yeah,
we see in the film, eventually poisoning his own wife, slowly killing her,
yeah.
while he also says that he loves her and he has this
Hmm.
romance with her.
Yeah.
So he's obviously a very conflicted character.
And, we always like to see that as an audience. So we like to kind of see the downfall when it comes to certain characters. We saw it, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. Like that's the classic archetype of those shows, which can really work. And that's a lot for an actor to chew on and to work with. And that's one of the reasons why Leonardo DiCaprio wanted to play that role.
Man, I got to pause this for a second. So after I was done watching the film for the second time, my wife, we just got done with the movie. Her initial reaction was, man, it was a good movie. But you notice he frowns. Him and Robert De Niro frown throughout the entire movie like that. Like even the close of the mouth in between us.
Thing.
Yeah, and I thought, he's probably wearing like a dental appliance or something, how they make his teeth. And so, is some of that drawing it down? But
maybe.
I don't know if you noticed that it's actually in a lot of Leonardo DiCaprio's movies where when he gets upset, he starts thinking heavily and he just really starts frowning down. I don't know why. It's a choice, but
it's a trademark. Yeah, every actor has their thing. Yeah, Leo's got his trademark frown. I guess
he's got that frown down. Yeah, sorry.
No, that's great. So what else should we discuss? Oh, so the name of the movie. I always thought, because when I was going into this, I was like, okay, Killers of the Flower Moon. How does this relate to the movie? And they kind of do explain this because Ernest is given a book about the Osage Nation and their customs and culture and everything, and he starts to read about that. So that's where the title actually comes from. It's an Osage story, which was mentioned in the history book. So I brought it up here if you missed it too, and if you were watching it and wondering how it related. And it's beautiful. I love how it relates to the movie. The flower killing moon is what it's referring to. And it's a time in May when purple flowers that spread over the Blackjack Hills like sugar candy by Wakanta, which always sounded like Wakanda to me, like Wakanta is the great spirit of the Osage Nation. And he brings about like taller plants that crowd out these smaller, beautiful plants and everything. And the flowers break and the petals flutter into the breeze and they leave the rest of the flowers to become part of the regenerative cycle. So they go back into the dirt and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so this story itself, about this the flower killing moon is symbolic to what's actually happening into the movie. As William Hale used his influence and his family to intermarry and kill Molly's sisters to gain that head rights to their oil money. So it's a nice little way to bring it back in with the culture of the people that this story is being told for, which is amazing. So I thought that was really cool, and I'm glad
it's
that
a beautiful image, right?
Yeah,
and there's lots of those throughout the film. The cinematography and how they shot things
just beautifully.
I think there's several shots throughout the movie that they could have made shorter, but I honestly liked having them in because you do sort of live in that era for 3.5 hours with the characters, and I like that kind of atmosphere in a film.
Yeah, I do too. So, and it just like I just love that there was practical effects, practical things. Like you get a shot of the farm with all the cows; those are real cows and everything. You get these sweeping, beautiful cinematic shots in the place. Like this was all filmed in the place where this stuff actually happened. This historical accurate story happened. And a lot of this stuff from the book, which was researched out by the author, was pretty close to what was portrayed in the movie. It's very close.
Page to screen, it was a highly accurate movie, which makes you even more mad because I'm like, holy cow, I can't believe Ernest actually did that, and William Hale actually did that. And
I believe it. History is full of this kind of stuff. It's crazy. And I don't think we've mentioned the name of the author. David Grann is the name of the author of the book. And he did so much legwork. And a lot of the stuff that he wrote, and he brought in a lot of his own perspective to the book, which was kind of left out of the movie, which is understandable because they had to rework it to center around Ernest and Molly as well. But hats off to him too.
Speaking of authenticity, of course, we would be remiss without mentioning the wonderful Lily Gladstone
Oh
in
my
her
gosh,
portrayal of
yes,
Molly. Um,
yes.
yeah, just knocked it out of the park. The younger her, this place takes over the course of time between 1921 and 1926. But as she goes throughout those 5 years, uh, she, as a character, ages quite a bit, even though it's not that long a time, because
Hmm.
of what she's going through health wise.
Health
She,
wise, just psychologically too.
yeah,
Whew.
right, losing her whole family to murder and
Yeah.
very violent murder, like explosions and being shot in the face and all this
Mhm.
stuff. And so you can see just this weathering that occurs with her for
Mhm.
all of the things that she's going through physically and emotionally. And Lily Gladstone just portrays that so well, the
She does.
struggle.
Yeah.
I honestly thought, having not knowing anything about the story, that we were going to see her die at some point. I just thought
Same.
they're going that
Same.
direction, you
Yeah.
know.
But it is amazing to me the presence that Lily Gladstone was able to have in this film and just the emotion she imbued in this. She took it over. She took over every scene that she was in, even with like
Yeah,
Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro. She stole the film. And there's no wonder she is winning Best Actress in all these awards and everything. And that she's up for Best Actress for the Academy Awards
yeah,
as well. I think she's going to get it. And she'd be the first Native American to win that, a Native American woman to win that. So that is amazing. And I just remember the scene too of when Annie dies from the explosion and Ernest comes down and he's like, yep, she's dead and everything. And
yeah,
they're down like in the basement and she's looking up and that guttural scream that she
mhm,
gives as she's wailing there on the ground, that moved me like, oh my gosh,
yeah,
her performance is well and beyond. I cannot wait. I think she's going to be working on another project with Martin Scorsese after this movie too. I can't wait to see
yeah.
more from this actor because she is definitely on the rise and she deserves all the praise for this performance.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments with her is the scene where she's first invited Ernest over to the house. It's kind of their first date, and they have dinner together,
Yep.
and they're just discussing different things. And Ernest is not a subtle man in any
No.
regard.
Yeah.
In fact, to his own fault, quite a bit.
Mhm.
And Leonardo DiCaprio just does a great job of making him this sort of Weasley, but somewhat likable guy.
Yeah.
Towards the back half of the movie, I just was screaming for him to get his due. But
Yeah.
throughout the first half, you're just like, this guy he doesn't know what he's doing, and he keeps going whatever route Robert De Niro is going to tell him to go. But in the
Good
meantime,
job, buddy.
it seems like he's literally legitimately falling in love with this woman.
Yeah.
Um, but that scene where he starts to be ridiculous, she's told him, we're not going to shut the window during the storm. We're going to be quiet because she don't want to hear any more of his nonsense.
Yeah.
And
He's
then
like, me
he,
too. Same audience
yeah, he
member.
picks up the whiskey and she says, "No, we're putting that away." And then he just starts to try to make small talk again, and she just puts his hand over it. And I
Mhm.
like, at that moment, it's to me, it was such a beautiful character piece for both of them
Mhm.
because it was kind of like, all right, she knows who he is now, and she's still accepting him. She still has decided that she's moving forward with entertaining affection for this guy,
Yeah.
and she knows he's gonna be a little bit of a work in progress, but she's willing to do that. She's willing to
Mhm.
just kind of mute his abrasiveness in order
Yeah.
to make the relationship work because for some underlying reason,
Yeah.
she's starting to love
There's some weird sort of love there. And yeah, it's like,
him.
why is she standing by this guy and like so trusting in him when all these other
Yeah,
despicable people are around hanging out with this dude too? And it's like, come on,
yeah.
put these
I
pieces
think that's
together.
what, at least from how they portrayed the characters, that's what draws her is because
Hmm.
she is suspicious of everyone
Yeah. Yep.
except for him. She just
Except
doesn't
him.
think. that he has it in him to be deceptive because of how, brazen he is and how kind of foolish he is.
Mm-hmm.
In this scene, you get a picture up there of it. They're talking, but the women are talking in the tribe about him.
Yeah.
And one of them says, he's just after our money. And she said,
He's a
yeah, of course,
snake.
they're all are.
Yeah.
But, he's someone that,
Coyote.
right. Yeah. He's someone that also seems to really actually love her. And in that way, I think she thinks he will be on my side. He's someone I can
Mm-hmm.
trust,
Yeah.
and someone that even might protect me in some ways against whatever's out there. So, yeah, I think that's why the relationship develops and grows, is she just does not see it in him um, to be the guy that's committing these horrible acts.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and it makes it all the more powerful too when she's putting it together at the end after the courtroom. Then she
yeah,
gets to sit down with Ernest and it's like, "Hey, what did you put in there?" And that was the final straw,
when he won't admit it.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like he's been lying to everybody, including me, and
Mhm.
to probably even himself here. He just does not want to admit on any level that
No.
he was doing anything to harm her or his family.
Which is like Henry Hale. He's like taking a
Exactly.
page out of his notebook about how to be a terrible human being. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah. Which that, as it was getting closer to the end, I was really worried that
Hmm.
we were going to get an ending like The Departed, an ending like Goodfellas.
Hmm.
And for me, this is just my opinion. Martin Scorsese knows an infinite amount more than me about how to end a movie. But I personally don't prefer many of his endings because I think they're blunt and the movie just kind of peters out. But I loved how they ended this movie. It was the first time it struck so close to the heart when he comes out at the end and reads the ultimate fate of Molly and how the murders weren't even mentioned and all that stuff. I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
that was perfection. And of course, then we get
Hmm.
the beautiful drone shot of the ceremony of drums
Oh
there
yeah. As it
with the
pans
Osage
up above
people.
it, looking like an eye. Yeah,
Yeah,
beautifully done. I love
right.
that. That's probably my favorite cameo so far of Martin Scorsese too. And the
Yeah,
reason why he decided to do that is he didn't think that he could tell another actor how to exactly read that with the emotion that he wanted to portray or the
wow.
gravitas that he wanted to portray. So he's like, well, I can't figure it out, and so that's why he decided to do that role. And so
Yeah,
he read it off himself, and afterwards he was like, oh, I could have probably told an actor this. I could have told him that. So he figured it out afterwards, but it was still an amazing performance by the director in his movie. The
yeah,
teleplay at the end, kind of took me out for a second, just to be honest. I was a little confused. It was pretty abrupt because I wanted to see the actual people and everything, but I thought it was very creative how they
yeah,
did that to wrap up the story and everything and to give us all that information, not just blurted out with a bunch of text on the screen as well. So I thought it was good for
yeah.
that aspect, but like just the first time around, if I watch it again, it probably would like it a lot more. But it did feel a little abrupt to me at that point.
Yeah, I was dreading it as I was watching it for the first
Hmm.
time. I was like, I just know that this is gonna, since this is a true story,
Yeah.
and since we're dealing with the racism that was in the government that was going
Hmm.
on the ground level, we're just not. It's not going to be a good outcome for any
No.
of these people.
Yeah.
And I was like, how are they going to do it where it's going to make the point of what happened in reality, but also kind of round it off with not just a down note, not just this
Hmm.
being something like look what happened and just kind of rubbing our noses in it as an audience, but
Yeah.
something to say look what happened and learn. The director
Mhm.
coming out is basically telling the audience this is as close to my heart as it should be to yours by
To
now,
yours. Yeah.
so learn from this story that was never properly told at the time.
Yeah, reiterating the
And,
whole point of this movie,
yeah,
right there right at
yeah.
the end.
So I liked it better than just Henry Hill coming out and kind of wham, giving the face right to the camera. But
Yeah.
that's my preference. So
Yeah, and I agree. And if you look at the history too, it's like both like Henry Hale and Ernest Burkhart, they're both paroled a couple of years later, and Ernest went
yeah,
back to jail. He was paroled, and then then he like what he went back to prison too. Let me see here. I found it, and he went back to prison in 1941. He was paroled in 1937, but he went back to prison for robbing his former sister-in-law. So the family that
yeah.
he helped kill and hurt, he
Well,
robbed his sister-in-law again. So
right,
he
and
spent
that's
more time in jail.
so. Just like you, when I started researching this out afterwards, because I had to know
Yeah,
detail wise,
you
did all
gotta
of this
know.
really happen? And the most glaring contradiction, not really contradiction, but the thing that was left out, that I don't know if it could have benefited the movie, because you're already mad by the time you get out of this
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Um, but the fact that this was it was not an isolated story, that the murders continued even after they put William Hale away,
yeah,
because other people were doing this to other women and families in that community for years afterwards.
yeah. There was
And people,
80. I think it
yeah,
was 80 Osage were killed during this time. And yeah, a lot of them were unsolved too. Like, and the
yeah.
book reiterates that as well. Like, a lot of this stuff wasn't wrapped up by the end. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, or the Bureau of Investigation at the time, didn't solve this. Like, a lot of people
Well,
went
it
free
didn't
or
stop
didn't.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So um, that was just, I mean, a movie like this makes you go out and want to
Hmm.
know more about these stories, I think. And so, there's a point to the art. Like, look at this subject, audience.
Yeah.
You have to. You have to take in this story, see what happened, and try to learn from it. But also go look and see what happened next.
Yeah.
And knowing that it continued, was pretty
Yeah.
devastating.
And I had to look, and like the only silver lining here was really Molly's story too, and where she ended up too, because she did a divorce Ernest and everything, and then as the movie says, like she got remarried a couple years later to John Cobb, but she did get her head rights and was able to get her money back and everything like that. So that all worked out for her.
Yeah.
She regained the family's wealth, and she ended the guardianship, that white guardianship too. So she had full rightful claim
Oh, I
of
didn't
all the
know that.
money.
That's
Yeah.
great.
So
That's great.
that's a
Whew.
nice little touch
Something.
at the end for all
Yeah.
the fucking devastation this poor woman had to
Right.
deal with. Like, good, but she did die early because of her diabetes. She died at the age of 50 in 1937. And
Yeah.
as the movie did say, she was buried in Gray Horse Indian Village Cemetery in Osage County, right next to her family. So
Mhm.
she's buried there.
And it was upsetting when they were talking about the teleplay ending,
Hmm.
that she died so young. And of course,
Yeah,
they went on to live
a
and get
long
out of
time.
prison.
Yeah,
But I thought maybe one way to look at it is Molly might have died with the knowledge that they were still in prison.
yeah,
So at least, she felt vindicated, hopefully, to some
yeah.
degree. I mean, who can
Yeah,
ever
but what a
really,
life like those two
yeah,
men, Henry and Ernest, led after that. Like, they were penniless. Henry
yeah,
was scrapping by in Montana. Ernest was just living with his brother. He died when he was 94, and they were both just, yeah.
yeah,
What kind of life was that? You know?
yeah. I mean, I don't know that they deserved really anything after killing so many people, families,
No. Yeah.
and tearing apart
Yeah.
the community.
They got let off easy. They should have been rotten in prison for their entire lives.
Yeah,
At
but
least my personal opinion.
that's what happened in reality. And the movie does a good job of
It does.
portraying it with a lot of thoughtfulness.
And so, what did you think of this guy right here? Let's see here. Jesse Plemons playing Tom White, the FBI agent. Because every time I saw him, I just kept imagining Leo in the role. I'm like, oh, what would it have been like?
Yeah, I was so glad um, that they had him portraying a good guy for once.
Me too. Oh,
Because
yeah, I know. Seeing him in Breaking Bad, and I was like, oh, gosh.
seeing him in Breaking Bad, seeing him in the trailer for an upcoming film called Civil War that's coming out this year, seeing him in season 2 of Fargo on FX. It's he's always playing.
He plays a good
Um,
bad guy.
he plays a good bad guy. In Fargo, I guess he's a good guy that makes a bunch of really stupid decisions.
Mhm.
He's kind of a reverse Ernest um,
Yeah.
in that show. So I was glad that he just got to play a straight up good guy, and
Yeah.
it would have been an interesting movie with Leo in the role. Um, but I don't know. I think Leonardo DiCaprio is a brilliant actor, and what he brought to Ernest's character, I would be tough to see anybody else do that
I agree.
as well as he did.
Yeah.
And so I forget Josh Plemons, Jeremy Plemons. I keep
Jesse Plemons.
Jesse Plemons. There we go. Yeah,
Jesse!
that's right because I remember. Yeah. Oh yeah, he's actually named Jesse from the character he tortures in Breaking Bad. But
Yeah.
anyway, so yeah, I was glad that he finally got a role that like he's not being typecast as that guy.
No.
So
I did. I very much liked his performance too. I thought he did a great job, and it was very refreshing getting to see him
yeah,
not just be a terrible, evil human being for once.
and he's a subtle actor. I think
Mhm.
every time I see him in a role, I think he portrays him as having just sort of this casual naturalness to the way that he speaks and the way that he makes decisions. It always seems to be authentic for
Yeah.
whoever he's playing.
Yeah,
So
I agree. Yeah, he is a very natural actor when it comes to
yeah,
that. Good point. Good point. Now, there's been some criticism of the film over its portrayal of the Osage Nation and like what and some filmmakers out there have been a little poo-poo on this movie because for lack of a better word.
there's better words. I don't think we're lacking, but go ahead. We'll
But
we'll figure one out.
so there's so much culture and there's so much history and there's so many stories out there for these indigenous tribes and everything. This American culture that we have, it's like, why do we have to focus on the brutality of white men once again doing something to our people? Can't we focus
Yeah.
on something more uplifting about our culture? And I think that they do have a point there. But again, I think that we do have to face the tragedies and the terrors and just the awfulness that has happened in the past
Yeah.
and come to grips with that kind of stuff. Is it good? Is it lighthearted? No. Should we have those stories out there with more First Nations? Absolutely. And I'm glad that there's more of a focus on First Nations in a lot of productions. Marvel's doing a stand-up job with that. They did that with Echo, with What If, and I love seeing that. We did Predator or Prey, you and
Yeah.
me back in the day on here, and it just, and that it's so great that we're getting more First Nation stuff, highlighted and
Yeah.
working with all these American cultures that we
Well,
need more films about.
right. And I think a lot can be said about that just in the film industry in general. If you look at
Yeah.
how Germans are portrayed pretty regularly in film,
What
they
are you
are
talking about, Matt?
right. They're either the Nazis or they're the Hans
Nine.
Gruber's out there. They're typically the bad guys. Same with the Russians, or anybody with that sort of Slavic sounding accent. So yeah, I think that the film industry, by and large, can do more to expand stories into different cultures where they're not always portrayed as the bad guys or
Right.
as the Native Americans as a people that were put upon, basically,
Mm,
through this story, shown as a way of,
yeah.
criminalized genocide. I guess all genocide is criminal, but
Hmm.
you know, genocide at a local level like this. I think there are other stories that we can tell about Indigenous people that are uplifting,
Yeah.
but that's going to take more stories like this as well, because
Hmm.
just having movies like this that employ a large amount of Indigenous people
Yes.
that go out of their way to also show the culture of the
Hmm.
Indigenous people is making you think, oh,
Yeah.
I'd like to
And
see
listening.
more of that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And
So,
listening to the people that it's about. Martin Scorsese did that, and a lot of the story and a lot of the movie
yeah.
changed because of what he talked about with the Osage tribe and everything. So
Mhm.
it's really cool that like they're very involved and that they're
Yeah.
getting a limelight. So
I think it creates more of a market for
mhm,
more movies
yeah.
about those people in that culture.
Agreed. Yeah. So hopefully this does lead to a lot of very uplifting, great stories about the cultures that we need to share and have.
Right.
And what fantastic movies out there. I love my Star Wars and my Marvels and my DCs, but
Yeah.
real personal historical movies like this and others are very important, and they just speak to you on a different level. And I don't know about you, Matt, but like part of the amazing thing about movies and movie magic is the way that it's able to shape your life and change you when you leave the theater, giving you a different perspective, more or less.
Yeah.
And that's what these type of movies do. That's what dramas do. That's what good filmmaking does. And I think that this
Mhm.
movie definitely does accomplish that.
Well, right. I think it definitely does that. And for me, as I was researching the movie after, throughout the weekend here, and I'm sure I will do more because it's such an interesting story,
Yeah.
is it made me start to trust the film industry more with these true to life stories, because oftentimes
Yeah.
we get a story that says based on a true story or inspired by true events or something, and then you
Little
go look at
artistic
what actually,
license.
yeah, what actually happened, and it
Yeah.
was something kind of roundabout like that, but not
Similar, not
really.
exactly the same. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so this movie paid attention to the authenticity, because so oftentimes I read a book about the subject and like, wow, why didn't they just tell this story? It's way more interesting than the
Right?
movie.
Yeah.
Um, but this movie does it in spades, where they actually pay attention to the real life facts. They put it on the screen, and it is more interesting than a sort
Gotcha.
of dumbed down or cherry coated version
Right.
of the truth that we get in a lot of other true stories on film.
Mhm.
So this Oppenheimer did it as well, and we'll get more into that film when we review it.
We will.
But they're starting to do more of this. Hollywood's starting to give us the facts about something rather than an interpretation of them, and I really like that.
Yeah,
So
more of
um,
that, please. I will take that all day.
yeah.
All day. So, we wanna talk about it. So, Lily Gladstone is nominated for Best Actress. Um, but Leonardo DiCaprio was, as they said, snubbed. Do you have any information about that? Like, why what
I
happened
mean,
there?
I don't think that we're ever going to know why.
Yeah.
You could look at what we've talked about on this show already today and say, well, because of the upset of the production company, did they make sure that he wasn't, uh, you know, through their influence, wasn't
Yeah.
an option for the Academy to nominate? I don't know. I mean, maybe that gets a little conspiracy theorist. It could
Yeah.
or could not be. Who knows? But
Who
I
knows?
know that, in my personal opinion, looking at all the movies that he's done, I think the guy's deserving of way more Oscars than the one that he
Yeah.
has for The Revenant. I like The Revenant; it's a good movie, but I think he's done a stellar job in a lot of different movies, this
Agreed.
one included.
Yeah, Agreed. So, and we'll have to circle back to this too once we've seen all 10 films and be like, okay, you know, who do we think is deserving of a best actor from these
Right.
movies that we're watching? Like what performances really stand out? And maybe by the end of this, we'll have seen like some other performance that's just like a shining beacon. Like, yeah, that's the one that needs to
Yeah.
win. Just like I think, like for sure, like I'm already calling it. I've seen a couple of the films on the list, but I haven't seen all of them. But I'm already calling it. Lily Gladstone's going to win the fucking Best Actress award. She's got to. Like that is the shining star right there. So calling it
I
right
don't
now.
know.
I'm not. I don't have to see any of these other ones. I'm sorry, Margot Robbie.
You're calling it
You're
with the
not winning
first
it.
film that we throw out
Yeah, I
there?
know. Just for her. Just for her. I don't
Yeah.
think that Killers of the Flower Moon's probably going to win Best Picture all around. It hasn't been winning any of the other awards, but Lily Gladstone has been winning Best Actress for most of those. So if you look at the trend, you know, I think that's the way it's going to go.
Okay, I don't know. I think she did an amazing job, is deserving of the Oscar, but I haven't seen enough of the other films to
I haven't
put
either.
my
So
prediction out there.
but I mean, it's just like seeing her performance in this, it's going to be hard to beat. It's going to be hard to beat
Very
that
glad that she got
performance.
nominated.
Me
Very
too. So glad. And oh yeah, we were talking about this before, like a couple days ago, about how in her high school, like in her yearbook, she got voted most likely to win an Oscar.
Receive an Oscar, yeah.
Yeah. So
There
there's
it
the
is.
thing right there. Yeah, her and this other guy with a
Yeah,
little sketch.
and this is not a doctored image. Sometimes I
No.
take this stuff with a little bit
grain
of
of salt.
scrutiny and probably paranoia on my part. But I looked into this, and it's an authentic yearbook picture of what she was like in high school. So
yeah, if we're gonna trust People magazine, right? That fake news outlet, right?
yeah, exactly. So then there they are holding a makeshift wooden Oscar.
Yeah.
Um,
I think they're
so
supposed
we'll
to be
see.
mimiking American Gothic because you see the picture in the background is.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's what they're supposed to be. I
I
don't
think
know.
that's what they're supposed to be
Yeah.
winking at or homaging to or something.
Right.
But all right, buddy.
So
Well,
yeah.
it's a great
Well,
movie.
why don't we give our rating here on a scale of 1 to 10? We could do the Doug scale, which, if you guys don't know, is from Not Your Status Quo. Doug has a scale from 1 to 10. If it's a 6 or above, it's watchable. So, but if it's a 5 or below, don't waste your time. So, on that scale, Matt, what would you give this movie?
Because of its length, I think it's not going to be accessible to everyone. And so for that reason, I'm going to give it a straight A, but not an A plus. There's not really much else that I can find fault with the movie. And for me, as I said before, the length is not something that took me out of it. But I like long movies. I just think they're not for everybody. And because they are a time commitment, it's not going to be even an option for everybody to go to the theater and see it for that long. So
True.
or sit there for that long. So
Even
A
I
for me.
probably couldn't have done that because I had to watch it over multiple days in
Yeah,
order to
yeah,
get
right.
it.
Even at home streaming it, like you have
Yeah.
to take it in pieces. And I just don't think that that's the intent of the filmmakers. But it is what we have to do. Those of us that live on the ground level here and have lives and jobs and kids and obligations and all that kind of stuff. It's tough to find time for a 3.5 hour movie.
It really is. And two dads right here on Fatherly Fan. We try to make time and we love this stuff. So we are doing the best we can with it. So an A for you, is that like a 9 out of 10? Is that what that would be?
Yeah, sorry. On the Doug scale, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10.
9 out of high praise. So
yeah,
for me, yeah, I'd agree. Like the 3.5 mark for this film, that is a tough one. It's a tough pill for any general audience to swallow. I mean, it takes 3.5 hours to swallow that pill. So, but But like I said earlier, and we discussed, I think that every minute of that 3.5 hours was justified. I think it's well worth your time, and I feel like anybody would get something out of this movie. And I feel like it's one that I will go back to eventually. I'll probably watch it again, and I might be able to pick up a little bit more. And I'm very interested in this story. I like doing the research was so fun. And a lot of movies you'll go see, and it's just like, okay. I guess I'll look into some stuff, but I'm not really interested. This, it's like, man, this really sparked my interest. So it got me interested in the history, which I love. I love that fact. I love the fact that this gets you more into what is happening and what happened in our history here in America. So for that, for the beautiful cinematography, Martin Scorsese just knocking out of the park as a director. I mean, the amazing performances that we got from Lily Gladstone as Molly, with Leonardo DiCaprio as Ernest, and Henry Hale as, Robert De Niro. And then,
we are going to talk about RDJ here with Oppenheimer, though, because
we are,
speaking of stellar performances from
wait
the Bobs,
for that, guys. Wait for that. That was yeah. We'll talk about that later. But just these amazing performances that really emotionally impacted me, made me feel something different after I left my screen. I didn't get to go to the theater to see this, unfortunately. I wish I did. Only downside to this. So for me, I'm gonna have to agree with you, Matt. It's an A for me. So I'm just gonna say 9 out of 10 for me. I definitely see why this is nominated for Best Picture, and we shall see if it wins the whole thing, right? So
yeah, we really will.
So 9 out of 10 for the boys. What are we covering next, Matt? And when are we covering?
Yeah, this Friday we're going to be presenting a double feature. Now we'll have them in 2 episodes for you guys to watch separately, but we're going to be reviewing the Oscar contenders American Fiction and Barbie.
Barbie! Our favorite.
I am stifling my anticipation for that one, but you know what?
And Barbie.
I've heard a lot of people really like it. I have not yet seen it. But I'm going to give it its due.
A lot of praise. It's on Max too. So if anybody out there wants to watch it, it is on Max right now. You can watch it right there. You don't have to purchase it or anything. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, and if we didn't make it clear for those of you out there that are interested in Killers of the Flower Moon, Apple TV's got it right now.
Yes,
you can watch it for free as part of their streaming package.
Yeah, well, if you purchase Apple TV,
I think you can also rent it on Prime and any of the paid for services as well.
True, you can. So yeah, definitely worth it. So I would go check that out. So yeah, if you guys want to join us for those, make sure that you watch Barbie as well as American Fiction are the 2 that we're going to be covering. And I will create 2 different live streams for both of those events. So we'll do one and then we'll proceed with the other and get those done. Try to keep them around an hour or so, just chatting with the boys here at Fatherly Fandom. It's going to be so fun getting to cover these with you, Matt. I can't wait.
Yeah.
We're going to do it. We're going to do all 10 of these dang movies.
I don't think I've ever seen, I've watched Oscar nominated movies after the awards shows or even several years after, but I don't think I've seen them all before the awards. So this will be fun. This would be a lot.
First for me too, so that's why this is so awesome. Thank you everybody for joining. So we got Patrick here from Poptography. I really enjoyed this film. I think she'll win an Oscar. Lily Gladstone, well done all around. Niceth, that's Paul. He's asking, "What's up? What's up, Niceth? Great to see you here." Once again, Patrick says, "Hey." Thank you for Doug for showing up too. He had to drop out because he didn't see this. Keith, Sierra popped up in the chat as well. Apparently there was an issue with our Twitch stream, so there's something going on with that. We'll look into that. But if there was a problem with Twitch, go on to YouTube or any of the other platforms. This was on Facebook, it was on Twitter, Twitch. It's also on YouTube. You can go there and see the recording right there. So thank you for Attack On Show for showing up. Great YouTube channel. If you haven't seen Attack On Show, awesome. He's got great recommendation, hidden gems. He does like little shows and movies and music and everything. And I've gotten to see a lot of really cool stuff because of Attack on Show's recommendations. Well worth checking out his site, as well as my boys over at Natural Status Quo. They're a lot of fun to hang out with, talking about anime right now. They did a Cowboy Bebop show on Sunday, so they finished that series up. And yeah, a lot of fun stuff coming up. I think me and Patrick at Pop Photography, I'm going to get together with him on Wednesday, and so I'll be on his channel, so you can check that out. And yeah, guys, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We still have people viewing this besides us, Matt. Isn't that cool?
Look at there.
I know. More than just you and me talking to dead air. It's great. So keep on coming. We're going to be doing all these shows. Lots of fun stuff coming up in the future. So
yeah, pretty much every week. So we got, I think we're counting down 6 weeks to get there. To March 10th, and have them all 10 films watched. So we'll crank them out for you guys.
And I think it's going to be pretty regular, right, Matt? On Mondays and some Fridays. Yeah, it's a great time. This is perfect. This worked out so great. I'm so glad that we're doing this. So glad that we're going to be bringing lots more stuff to you guys out there. And if you haven't done so already, please give us a like on all the platforms, YouTube as well as Facebook, Twitch, all the places. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. It really does help us out because, we're a small little channel here. We don't make money off of this, but we would love your support and everything. And maybe we can monetize at some point in time, but that's not the point here. Is we love this stuff. We love bringing this stuff to you. We're building community. We're bringing insights to you guys, which we love. And we hopefully can add to the cinema landscape with all of our nerdiness.
Bring a little bit more appreciation to an art form that you and I have enjoyed together for many, many years, decades now. We're getting old, buddy. So
yeah, we are. But we definitely bonded over movies. That's the foundation of our friendship and our brotherhood, and we like to share that with you guys out there. So
without it, we're nothing. We just
sit
there in silence and
exactly.
How are the 49ers doing? They're beating the Seahawks, so not a bad day.
It's a bad day to me.
It's a bad day for you.
Well, okay. All right, everybody, we're going to take off here, so I will leave you with our outro, and as always, from our families to yours, have a good one. See you later. So thanks for joining me today on Fatherly Phantom, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And from our families to yours, have a good one, and may the Force be with you.